it's another side that like wants to take more, wants to go that one more round, because like going that one more round when you don't think you can, that's what makes all the difference in your life. You know what I mean?
Welcome to another episode of One More Round, the Rocky Series podcast. I am your host, Ryan, and I do not have my co-hosts with me today, Katie and Kyle. I thought it might be scary for my guest to see three people pound on him at the same time, but I have a very special guest. This is the first time I've done an interview in a while, so bear with me if I'm a little bit rusty, dear audience, but I think I'll be okay. I have with me today Jonathan Decker, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist, but more importantly, he's a Rocky fan. Welcome to the show. Right. Yeah, welcome to the show, Jonathan. How you doing?
Hey, yo, what do you think you're doing for the next 40 or 50 years, you know?
Surviving. Surviving.
Right, as best we can. As best we can. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for agreeing to come on. I will just say I do a Rambo podcast as well. So if anyone's a true Sly fan, they're coming to watch this interview because of your fan base, and they're coming to this interview, but they happen to be Rambo fans. I just want to plug that I have a Rambo podcast called It's a Long Road, the Rambo series podcast, and both the Rocky and Rambo podcasts do the same thing. I'm breaking down the movies one scene at a time in order. Each season is the next film in the series. And I invited Jonathan on to the Rambo podcast because I've had rotating guests. That's the kind of the deal with that one. Every episode's a different kind of creator, content creator, podcaster has come on that show. And you're like, gee willikers, I sure like Rocky a lot more. And I'm like, well,
I said I like Rambo, but I love Rocky.
That's fair.
And I would, and honestly, like, if you're wanting to have someone on for like a mental health perspective, the richest film is First Blood. Like, yes. I could talk about First Blood if you want to have me on. The sequels, some of them are a bit more 80s cheese awesomeness and then early aughts cheese awesomeness, but First Blood has a lot of meat there. But who doesn't love Rambo First Blood Part 2 as one of the best just fist pumping action movies
Absolutely.
Ever made, right?
Yeah, well, if they don't like that, I don't want them watching this show. Go away. If you don't like Rambo First Blood Part 2, we don't need you. No, I'm just joking. That's well, maybe we will. I would like to have somebody talk about the mental breakdown in that final scene.
But you know what I mean? Like some of the Rambo sequels are more just kind of fun, awesome action movies. But First Blood is a really rich drama. I mean, it's powerful. And so if you wanna invite me again, I'd say yes.
Okay. Well, I will. That will happen. Let's just say that. So we'll save the Rambo and the psychology behind the Rambo character for a discussion on that series. So there's a teaser. Okay. So I'm glad that you came on to this show because there are questions that I will have for you with your background. But before we get to that, why don't we just talk a little bit about what it is you do as a licensed marriage family therapist and how long you've been doing it? You look like you're 30 years old. How long have you been doing this for? What qualifies you to tell people how to run a family? What's going on here?
I am 42 years old. My bachelor's degree was clinical psychology. My master's was family therapy, and then it was couples and family therapy. And I've been doing counseling for 15 years now. This will be my 15th year since I saw my first clients. And I specialize in dealing with anxiety and depression and trauma in conjunction with a relationship.
Okay.
My thinking is that if someone goes to therapy and they're getting help for just them, they go home and then they still got to deal with whatever's happening at home. And what's happening at home can undo what happens in 1 hour of therapy versus a week at home. And so I prefer to get the family involved. And so that's my area of expertise. But I've taken it to YouTube. Some of you may know me from Hi, I'm Troy McClure. You may know me from.
Well, I was gonna get to your YouTube channel.
You were gonna get to that.
Oh
okay.
yeah. So don't worry. But I kind of want to hear who you are outside the channel and your first. Yeah.
I'm a husband. I'm a biological father of 4, but a father of 5. I have a stepson from my wife's first marriage.
Great.
And this last year, because I was preparing an episode about Rocky for our YouTube channel that we'll talk about in a second. But in November, all of my kids and we watched all 6 Rocky films and both Creed films. Because I was doing research for work,
Sure.
and that's my favorite thing here. I'm just gonna move my camera for just a second so I can grab my power cord.
Yeah, we don't want you to die on us. We just started.
I've got a trauma clinic called Mended Light that I run and operate with my wife, and I'm an author. I've got a background in acting and stage comedy and other things, but. Yeah.
So I want to talk about.
I dabble.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I'm just a ham and egger, you know. So this is great that you've agreed to come on the show and to come on the podcast. I do want to talk about your channel. I noticed you have 2 YouTube channels. So why don't we talk first about the one that you do? I think you do with your wife, called Mended Light. Is that right?
Yeah. So Mended Light is trauma focused, but it's also healthy relationship focused, and that's where I review a lot of TV shows. I look at them through the lens of psychology, and so TV shows, trauma work, relationship work, answering people's questions, things like that. That's the Mended Light YouTube channel.
Okay.
And then the other one is, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna ask which one before. Well, the other one. Let's just say the other channel you do is quite successful. What? I have a theory why. I know why. I should say I know why, because Mended Light sounds like it should be maybe as big as Cinema Therapy, which is your other channel. But why do you think there's such a discrepancy between the 2 channels as far as maybe subscriber count goes?
Mended Light is doing very healthy. It's got a good subscriber count, but the Mended Light is meant to be more, I guess, more intensely clinical.
Okay, I see.
I mean, people go to Mended Light because they're looking for the undiluted, and I don't mean that to disparage Cinema Therapy, but Cinema Therapy is very much edutainment. Cinema Therapy is my buddy and I. He's a filmmaker. I'm a therapist. It's like Siskel and Ebert meets Mr. Rogers, and we talk about mental health and psychology and healthy relationships through the lens of our favorite film characters. And the idea is to make it fun and engaging so people don't actually feel like they're learning. And so it's,
nobody wants to learn. You learn by accidents. That's the best way to learn.
Yeah, so it's 2 different channels, 2 different purposes. With Cinema Therapy, it's meant to be like, the channel is on the business side. Cinema Therapy, the channel is the moneymaker, right?
Sure.
Whereas with Mended Light, the channel is meant to be kind of it's meant to help people in and of itself if they can't afford counseling, but it's also meant to be kind of a funnel for if people are looking for counseling. Then the channel serves that purpose of, okay, it introduces them to our work, it introduces them to what we do. And so I'm very proud of Mended Light. It's had a lot of growth in the past year. It's got we earned our silver play button on YouTube for Mended Light last year, and we earned our gold play button for Cinema Therapy. So it was a big year for the 2 different channels.
Was that just this past year? Those milestones happened just this past year, like 2022?
Yeah, 2022.
Wow.
Yeah, and both of them, Cinema Therapy started early 2020, and Mended Light started at the end of 2020. So they've only been around for a short while. So they're doing quite well for themselves.
Well, good for you. So I think that might be the problem with my show and my channel. I neither educate nor entertain. That might be so maybe that's why I have to keep my full-time job in the military in the meantime. But that's great that you do that. I will say I'm not just saying this. I watched your Cinema Therapy. Now, in the last 2 weeks, I've binged a lot of episodes, and I went specifically to movies that I know that I've seen. There was some that you react to with your partner, and you do the therapy with the movie or whatever the points, like Bullies and one or whatever it might be. And what I liked about of course, the movies I've seen, as I started watching, of course, a handful of episodes, I saw, what it is you do and how it is you go about it. I realized, okay, you don't necessarily have to see the movie. Now, I'd recommend maybe if you don't care about spoilers, then it doesn't matter. But what I like about what you guys do is even if you haven't seen the movie or it's been a long time since you've seen the movie, it's not a movie breakdown, but you're taking elements from the film and draw them into real life and helping people work through whatever issues that they may have or want to think about that the movie would, bring forward.
Right. The idea is not that movies are reality. Obviously, they're not. But sometimes movies get it right, and usually they get it right in like a really condensed form. You know, like in real life, fixing a relationship or improving your mental health is not a course of 2 hours or over a few scenes. But we can still take that and draw it out and say, okay, what does this look like in real life? And so it's a very film positive channel. There's a lot of YouTube channels that exist to take the piss out of things or to make fun of things or to take shots at things and that's well and generally that's not us.
No, you guys are not.
Generally we pick films that we find inspiring or that we find motivating or that we find are very well made and well acted and the messages are sound. Every once in a while we'll pick something to say, and here's what not to do. And so we had a blast just completely decimating the Twilight films. That was...
How dare you?
But that was...
Now my fans are going to run away. All my Rocky fans are huge Twilight fans. You know? No.
Huge overlap in the Venn diagram there. Right, they're the same people.
Yeah. No, that's great. No, that's fun. I was going to say, people that, of course, listen to my shows, we've done movie reviews of Sly's career, of course, and let's just say we take a little bit of the piss out of movies like Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. So that I don't think that's going to be on your channel anytime soon. Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. You guys, that's my challenge to you. No, okay. You should because it is a family. You know what? That is my challenge to you. It's a family drama comedy, I guess you could say, because they got these mother-son issues. This would actually be a great discussion for you guys.
Here's a Stallone comedy that actually is good. Oscar, and it's under. Oscar, have you seen Oscar?
Oh, okay.
Where he. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Who am I talking to?
How dare you? How dare you? No, we haven't reviewed it for our channel yet. We're getting very near that review. It hasn't been reviewed on our channel yet, but yes, sir, I've seen Oscar. Yes.
Oscar is legitimately funny, and it's got Tim Curry and Marissa Tomei. So what's not to love, right?
Sure. It's better than Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. I'll give you that.
Who doesn't love Cliffhanger or Demolition Man? I've got a soft spot for Daylight.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think Copland is among Stallone's best work. Of course. I find like he does macho action really well, but here's like his secret weapon is he's this big strong guy, and when he goes vulnerable, it's really impactful. Mm-hmm. You watch Copland, you watch First Blood, you watch almost any of the Rocky films, and there's this really cool balance between tough and tender that I don't think he gets enough credit for because it's disarming. It's really powerful when he does it.
No, I totally agree. And I don't know if you watched The Tulsa King, the series that came out on Paramount Plus.
I haven't yet, but he's a mobster, right?
Right, and he displays the myriad of everything you just said. It's like Stallone's doing everything he's good at all at once. He does the tender, funny, and tough guy all at once. It's quite a showcase. He's showcasing all those things you just said in one series.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll have to check it out.
You really should check it out. Okay, so
I follow him on Instagram, so I see all his posts about it. I just haven't had time.
Yeah, well, he's waiting for you.
I'm sure he is. Yeah.
So I also want to say your name, Jonathan Decker. That's like... I swear Sly has used that name in one of his action films. Wasn't Jonathan Decker the cliffhanger guy? No, I mean, that's like an action film name. I'm sure you've been told this before.
Only recently for the first time. This is only the second time I've heard this.
Okay,
and so, but yeah, I'll bask in that. Sure. I'll take that all day. Sure.
There you go. Do you think you could do it? You'd be an action star?
In my 20s, I was. And by star, I wasn't a star, but I did make my own action films with my friends. We were...
cool.
We were specifically inspired by Jackie Chan.
Okay.
And so we did a lot of our own... they call it parkour now. Back then, it wasn't called parkour. It was just...
parkour, yeah.
Yeah, no, we were just imitating
walls and
climbing walls and prop fighting and stuff, and we were just imitating Jackie Chan. Cool. I have a personal YouTube channel that's just Jonathan Decker on YouTube. You can find that, and you can see my stunt reel of what I was like before I got married, had kids, and sat all day every day for a living.
Oh, well, stop it! Well, you're doing meaningful work now, so don't sell yourself short there. So. Okay, well, now we're going to talk about your Rocky fandom and your fandom of the Rocky franchise. Of course, I'll have a couple questions regarding your trade, so to speak. So, what is your fandom of Rocky? When did you start first watching it? Was it parents that showed you? Did you discover it on your own?
It's hard for me to pinpoint exactly when it was, but I was born in 81, and if I'm not mistaken, my dad showed me like Rocky 3 and 4 when I was a kid, which I still think... those are probably the best Rocky films for kids. That's not to say that they're dumb, but like Rocky 2, and Rocky Balboa especially are are more
drama.
deliberately paced. They're dramas, and I don't think they're slowly paced, but it's more about real world issues, real world emotions. Whereas if you're a kid, you can connect with Clubber Lang is a bad dude and he's got to go down, right? You can connect with Hulk Hogan, you connect with Ivan Drago. There's a beautiful simplicity to those films that makes them really easy to digest as a kid.
Yeah,
and so I got into Rocky.
Sorry, 3 and 4 are the first and really the only films where there's a real villain, so to speak, in those first 6 films where they're truly a bad person that Rocky has to beat up. Whereas Apollo was not a villain, and neither was Mason Line Dixon and Rocky Balboa. He wasn't a bad guy. It's just but parts 3 and 4 were they were legit bad guys. And I guess Tommy in a way, but he's more of a fallen soldier, so to speak, than a bad person. He just got
Well, Tommy's not a villain. Tommy's just a douche. Yeah. You know.
Well, it's the mullet. I think he would have been half the douche with a proper haircut. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. That's absolutely fair. So yeah, in 3 and 4, the simplicity of the kind of the good versus the evilness of it really jived with, you know, growing up, I'm watching Star Wars and Indiana Jones, so Rocky 3 and 4 just like fit right in there. I think it was as a teenager though that I went back and started with the first one, and
you must
fell in love with just how.
They're like, whoa!
Oh my gosh,
this is Rocky. Yeah.
Well, I think my dad tried to get me to watch it, and I was bored to tears when I was a child. And then I watched it as a teenager with, you know, some sort of mental maturity, and it was poignant and powerful and inspiring and all the wonderful things. You know, and so then in high school, when I'm doing high school sports, football, basketball, track. And then later, I kind of transitioned out of football and basketball because I had a lot of injuries, and I just kind of got into cross country running. But I was always holding a cassette Walkman with my Rocky mix.
Nice,
right? And I had to switch hands because if you run like 3 miles with one hand, your forearms get sore, so you got to switch it. And when we're in a basketball camp, I remember where I was at basketball camp and Rocky 4 was on, like we had cable and Rocky 4 was on TBS, and so we would watch Rocky 4 to get psyched for our workouts and everything, and that was the biggest thing. I mean, all through high school was Rocky was my motivation to get in shape and stay in shape. I mean, I think for a lot of people, fitness is a huge inspiration from Rocky because it's those damn training montages, man. They're amazing, and you want to believe that you can get off the couch and be a bum. And then not be a bum anymore.
Yeah. Paulie's your November, December body. Then you want to get to your January body starting with Rocky regime in January. Yeah.
And, you know, my first girlfriend in high school, I knew she was good to date. I did a Rocky litmus test. And back then, like, I was all about Rocky 2, and I still am. I think Rocky 2 is way underrated.
Yeah, probably.
But I don't know why I skipped Rocky and just took her straight to Rocky 2. But I wanted to see how she felt about it, and she loved it. I'm like, okay, we're okay to date. Like it was that serious.
You and I are kindred spirits, my friend. I did the same for my lovely wife. I did the litmus test. I made her sit through the whole series because if she didn't like the Rocky films or thought, what is this hogwash, or kind of scoffed at it, like, I think it's very telling. Put it this way, I've never met a mean person. Sorry, Put it this way, anyone who likes Rocky has never been a jerk. There's a direct correlation between those two, I found.
Yeah. And especially if they truly, I'll say this: you can like just Rocky 4 and be a jerk, and that's not a knock on not a knock on Rocky 4.
That's
just saying, like, there are people who are just like, Rocky movie sucked, but I like Rocky 4, and I'm like, oh well, I don't trust you. I don't trust you.
If Rocky 4 is your favorite film in the franchise, then we have some doubts. There's some doubts about you. If you have the potential to be a bit of a Paulie. No.
Rocky 4 can be look. Here's my take. I think sometimes you can look at movies in a series and you can say, well, this one's objectively the best, but another one's my favorite. Like I look at the Indiana Jones films, and it's hard to dispute that Raiders is objectively the best film in that series.
No, part 2, that's just me. Temple Doom. But
well, hang on. We'll get to Temple of Doom in a second. We're going to take a quick tangent. But just in terms of structure and storytelling and originality and like of course. and influence, you could say Raiders is like a perfect film. Yeah. And you can knock on Last Crusade and say, well, it's just a copy of Raiders, but it's not as violent and it's funnier. But Last Crusade is my favorite.
Okay.
Even though I don't think it's the best one.
That's fair.
Because it's got so much heart and it's so funny, right?
It's great. It's great fun. It's great fun. It's the most fun of the films. Yeah.
It's super fun, and I will give you Temple of Doom, dude. I did not like Temple of Doom growing up. I've done such a 180 on Temple of Doom. Like I'm crazy about that.
Maybe I'm just weird. I was the kid that loved it as a kid. I kind of loved the craziness of it. I love the Harrison Ford.
It's wild. It's
Harrison
so
Ford on the
bonkers.
bridge. The Harrison Ford on the bridge. That whole sequence, man.
Yeah,
he looks amazing. He's cutting the bridge, and something about that whole sequence. It just makes the whole film amazing. The bugs, the eating scene, everything's so crazy. I love it.
The best shape he's ever been in. Yeah. Kate Capshaw doesn't bother me, and I'll tell you why. Because it's like because it's part horror. But it's part horror film. She's a scream queen.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, she has to scream.
Like if you watch it as a horror film and she's a scream queen, it's like, oh, okay, not a big problem. Ki Hei Kwan is so. But here's why I love Temple of Doom. And then we get back to Rocky.
Sure.
It is especially situated as like a prequel to Raiders.
Yeah, I love how it's arbitrarily just out of nowhere we've made a prequel. Yeah.
It's not. And I'll tell you why.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna do a whole cinema therapy episode on this, but I'm gonna spoil it for you right now.
Well, sure. Yeah.
Indy in Raiders, he's gone from somebody who took advantage of Marion and was kind of a callow jerk to someone who actually apologizes to Marion, and he's fully committed to archaeology and preserving the sacredness of relics, and he's genuine hero in Raiders.
Okay.
In Temple of Doom, he's the scoundrel who hooked up with Marion and broke her heart. At the beginning of Temple of Doom, he's a Tomb Raider who associates with gangsters, who breaks the law time and time again, and he's kind of a shallow jerk. I mean, he gets to the village and not completely, like he honors their customs and stuff, but he doesn't want to get involved. And the only reason he gets involved is fortune and glory. He has no aspirations of saving anybody. Or he's get in, get the stones, get out.
Interesting. I've never actually watched it in the actual time order. I'm going to do that one day.
You know when Belloc says to him, "You are just it'd only take a nudge to make you like me. Like I'm a shadowy reflection of you." At the beginning of Temple of Doom, Indy is basically Belloc. Oh. He's got a little bit more heart. He looks after Short Round. He's not a complete awful person. He cares when people die, but he's not a hero. He is a Tomb Raider who's out for fortune and glory, and he goes into the temple, they pull out the heart, and then they all leave, and he swings down there, he gets the stones, and he has them in hand, and he's gonna leave, and he hears a whip and a child screaming. And he turns and he looks at it, and Willie and Short Round are like, Indy, come on, get out. And he looks at them, and you could see the wheels turning, and he's gonna leave, and then he decides to go investigate. He throws the rock, he gets imprisoned, right? The whole thing where he drinks the blood, it's like 20 minutes, it's a straight up horror film. And then when Short Round brings him back, and he says, Indy, I love you and everything. And then he says, and then Kate Capshaw said, Willie says, let's get out of here. And then he says, right, all of us. Oh, yeah. And the moment when the kids are being like whipped and pushed, and then like it pans up and you see just the silhouette of Indy and he's ready to kick ass. You know what I'm talking? You know the one I'm talking about. I know the movie
very well. I just never considered how much of the character really. It's interesting.
Indy's arc goes from selfish treasure hunter, Tomb Raider, to genuine bona fide hero who returns the stones and saves the children, and he goes from someone who Belloc recognized as being almost just like him to a legit hero who is nothing like Belloc, and that carries through the rest of the series.
Interesting.
Temple of Doom is the truth, man. It is an amazing film.
I love the film, but I've actually never watched it with that arc and order. I might just, in preparation for the 5th film coming out, because yes, I'm going to have to see it in the theaters, I'll watch it in the order of Temple, Raiders, then Last Crusade. I think I'll do it in that order for sure. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, but if you pick any of the original 3, then you haven't picked a bad film for your favorite indie film.
No. Okay, so now let's go back to Rock. No, don't. Whatever. Who cares, right? This is great. I suspect there is a Venn diagram crossover between Rocky fans and indie fans. Because it's the same kind of look. We're in the same age bracket of films. These are our childhood memories. Right?
Macho 80s awesome movies. Yeah,
sure, awesome. Yeah, we love Harrison. Okay, a question about Adrian and Rocky's relationship. You're a family therapist. How would you describe their marriage?
To me, they are one of the great film romances, and even more than that, they're one of the great film marriages, which is even more rare because Hollywood loves falling in love stories, but there's not a ton of staying in love stories, and what that looks like. And so I think maybe Rocky and Adrian's first date, not the ice rink, but when he takes her back to the apartment, maybe hasn't aged the best. She's, it kind of comes from, it's a different era. You watch the old Sean Connery Bond movies and stuff where women, the idea is that women want to, but they can't say yes because they'll be seen as easy, so they have to say no. And now we're like, no, consent is key. That scene doesn't play very well. It's like you take that one scene out for me. But you look at their courtship, and you look at how Rocky sees himself as a loser. Everyone treats him like a loser. Adrian sees herself as a loser, and Paulie treats her that way. And when he says that we've got gaps, we fill each other's gaps. And he's talking about emotionally. He's talking about in terms of personality, where she's weak, he's strong, and where he's weak, she's strong, and how they're a really cool yin yang. And there's a tenderness there and a sweetness there, and an almost fearfulness there on both of their parts when they're dating, that this is too good to be true, because none of them have ever really been loved like that before, right? And so Rocky is freaking beautiful for that. And then you get into their marriage, and Rocky too, Adrian, watching that as a kid, as a teenager or as a young person, I'm like, oh, come on, Adrian, let Rocky fight. I want to see him fight. Why are you holding back the movie? And now I watch it as a husband and as a father and as someone whose body has broken a couple times in different ways, and I'm like, oh, Adrian's concerns are totally valid. Sure. But the way she supports him, the way, first of all, that he's willing to give it all up for her, right. And the whole some people think the scene in the hospital where he's praying and where he's reading to her by her bedside is slow, but I think that's some of the most beautiful stuff in the entire series. And then when she wakes up and says "win," like, who doesn't get the chills, right?
That's the best. Yeah, we kind of have to go through that little bit of a mire of a sequence just to get to the win part, because it just feels like you're freed, for sure.
But that's the thing. Here's the thing. It has to be a long, drawn-out, emotional scene so that win hits as hard as it does. You rush through it. Yeah. I felt the same way. You ever see the movie Hot Fuzz?
Oh, yeah. I love that film.
Okay, here's the thing about Hot Fuzz. Most comedies have no business being as long as that movie. That movie is 15 to 20 minutes too long when it comes to a comedy. And and like 2/3 of the way through, it starts to feel like it, right? And it starts to feel like, oh, where is this even going? But when you get to the moment where he's in the gas station and he sees the action DVDs, and then, when he finally unleashes like all the action hero stuff and he suits up and everything, you realize that if they hadn't stalled a bit, you wouldn't have felt the rush when it hit, right?
All right, nice.
So I see it's a deliberate pacing thing. So in Rocky 2, like I think the whole thing at the end, yo, Adrian, I did it, and I think Talia Shire, like, it's just beautiful to me, like those 3 seconds where she just claps and says "I love you" twice. She's just so happy for him. And then you get to Rocky 3, and Adrian's a badass. How'd you get so tough? Like I the whole scene on the the whole scene on the beach is exactly what he needed. It's a swift kick in the pants. I think Rocky 4 in its original cut does a huge disservice to Adrian. She becomes a shrill nag who is just kind of reverted back instead of being the person who's in Rocky's corner. And I think the Rocky 4 director's cut goes a long way to giving us Adrian back.
Nice. Yeah,
there's
a lot more Adrian in that cut, yeah.
Well, not just more Adrian, but she felt like Adrian, Okay. Even just some of the different edits or the different beats or the different takes they used, she didn't come across as someone who's just saying no all the time. She came across as somebody who, like, she had insights into Apollo's motivations that were spot on. And you feel more keenly that it's not that she doesn't believe in her husband. She literally just watched a family friend get killed.
Yeah, by the same guy that he's now challenging. It's like, what are we doing here? Yeah, it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I just think all of the Rocky 4 director's cut salvaged, like, I'm a huge fan of that cut.
Yeah, it's a great cut.
I think Rocky 4 is, if we're honest with ourselves, we all love it for nostalgia. It's a music video. Mm-hmm. It's a series of montages. Adrian's a shrill nag. Apollo goes out like a chump. He's a Apollo freaking Creed, and he goes out like a chump.
Yeah.
And we love it because of that last half hour, right? And you get the director's cut, and suddenly Apollo puts up a major fight before he goes down.
Yeah, he goes
His
down
motivations make a lot, and the idea that he didn't want to go quietly into the night, like he went to this fight thinking like realizing I'm a warrior, this is how I want to go out. And when he realized that he could be killed in the ring, he was more aware of that than anybody. Once Drago started whooping him, and that Apollo chose it. He chose to go out like a warrior. Like, I just think that the whole thing just made it so much, and it ties. They use Bill Conti's music more. Yeah. Rocky's graveside eulogy actually, like Rocky IV now feels like, instead of this weird outlier that doesn't fit in with the rest of the series, it feels like a Rocky movie.
Totally agree.
And
well said. Yeah.
And Drago puts up more of a fight. No, not Drago. Sorry, that Rocky and Apollo. Like in the original cut, Rocky gets his butt kicked the entire fight and then rallies at the end.
Right.
And I think it's so much cooler when Rocky is beating Drago throughout the whole fight. Like he's kicking his butt right back there.
Good point.
And it makes it, to me, it's even scarier because Drago, instead of just being like this impossible killing machine, Drago's taking a beating from Rocky, just like Rocky's taking one from Drago, and Drago keeps coming.
Yeah.
Right?
It was to the end for himself. He was fighting. We forget that the Drago arc at the end there, he was actually fighting for. He fights for me. He says, "I fight for me." So we forget that he actually turned on himself or his own country, saying, "No, this is about my own personal going the distance, so to speak."
Yeah. And you see that he's their puppet throughout the whole thing a lot better. And you see, so when he says, "I fight for me," before in the movie he said that, and you're like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And now you realize, oh no, he really fights for himself because he's being stripped of his individuality. Yeah. You get more love for the Russians as people, and you also get, I think my biggest save is Stallone's speech at the end is more subdued. And even though he wins over the crowd, he doesn't win over the Politburo, which always seemed like a bridge way too far. Like, like the Politburo is...
He doesn't end the Cold War in the director's cut, I don't think.
Yeah, the Politburo just stands up and walks out because they're pissed that their people are cheering for him. Like, it's so much better that way than like Mikhail Gorbachev standing up and applauding Rocky, and I'm just like, I don't believe it.
I don't believe it for a second. No, it's a much better cut. Now, but there's a couple things I want to get to before our... I mean, I could talk Rocky forever, and that's good. I know you can too. But there's a couple things I want to bug your brain about. One is, do you think, or I don't want to lead the witness here. So, well, I guess what evidence? Because we're talking about the evidence of the marriage that we see on film. So we can't make up stories that we don't see on film. So the question is, in Rocky V, of course, we have the whole father-son relationship coming to a head. Was Rocky Jr., Robert, was his behavior towards his father justified, and then was Rocky actually not a great father? Is it your opinion, as again in your job here, was he a bad father, or was Robert a spoiled brat, or a bit of both?
A bit of both, but it's less about good versus bad and more about, is it working? I think because Rocky shows how much he loves Robert in Rocky 3, Rocky 4.
Yeah, he loves his son.
Yeah, he loves his son, but he's, the Rocky films are such a, Stallone himself will say this, they're the life of Sylvester Stallone, right? And how for so much of the 80s he was chasing his own dreams, he was chasing his own ambitions, and wasn't really there for Sage. And you see that now in how close he is with his daughters, that he learned from that, like he didn't want to repeat that mistake, right?
Sure, yeah.
Is Rocky a bad father? No. Rocky has lost his career, he's lost his passion, and so he's trying to live vicariously. And his arc in Rocky V, like, I think Rocky V is a couple of script changes and edits away from actually being a decent movie, but it just doesn't come together. Like, there's a lot of interesting stuff in Rocky V that I like exploring, but it just never quite...
Sly might work on a director's cut for that.
I would love that if he could. I don't imagine the same magic he worked for Rocky IV, just because I don't think the source material is quite as engaging. But I could be wrong. But I don't think he's a bad father. I do think, if we carry on the marriage conversation, I think Rocky Balboa is hands down my favorite of the Rocky films.
Okay.
The reason for that is, I was really excited that it was coming out. I remember when the trailer dropped and people were laughing in the theater and saying, "Not another one of these." And
Yeah, I recall that too. I kind of the scoffing. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of scoffing, and I was excited. I was really hoping that he'd pull it off, and I went to see it, and I did a marathon leading up to it at home on DVD, and then I went to see it, and found it just to be a spectacular return to form, and smart and emotional in all the right ways. Like I heard James Mangold say something about Indy 5, speaking of Indy, that he doesn't talk about Rocky Balboa, but it made me think of Rocky Balboa, which is in the original script for Indy 5, there were a couple of like jokes about Indy's age, but otherwise it was just another Indy adventure. And he says, no, whatever is your greatest perceived weakness, lean into that the hardest. And so Indy 5 now became about like Indy at the end of his journey, right? And that's more poignant. And I see Rocky Balboa the same way. Stallone is well aware when he writes that script that it's a laughable idea. So he has characters laugh at him. Right? And he very wisely doesn't make it against some larger than life villain. It's Mason the Line Dixon, who's a good fighter, but he's unproven against anybody good, and Mason doesn't take the fight seriously. And Mason breaks his hand, and like a bunch of other stuff happens. Right. So and then Rocky doesn't win the fight. Right. Like it all coalesces because it's really just about catharsis of grief, right? I saw the film, loved it. 3 days later, and the last conversation I had with my mom in this life is I called her out leaving the theater to tell her how much I enjoyed the film and just to talk with her about it. And 3 days later, she was dead. Suddenly, it was not foreseen.
Wow.
And so I went home. We had the funeral, and while I was home, my dad and I literally went around Mesa, Arizona, where I'm from, and he showed me different places they went when they were dating. The apartment that they lived in when they first got married, like a bunch of other things. And of course, I think of the film that I just saw a week and a half before. And I said, Dad, we should go see Rocky Balboa. And he's like, isn't Adrian dead? I'm like, yep, it's about a father and son mourning the loss of the wife and mother. He's like, that seems like it's probably too soon. And I said, trust me, Dad. And we went, and it was a very healing experience. The whole speech, it ain't about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit. The whole bit where he's in the ring and he gets hit and he repeats that line to himself while there's images of him and Adrian together flashing, and then he just says, get up. And the crowd is chanting. Like that was what we needed. And my dad and I went into the foyer of the theater and just hugged and cried as people were walking around about us, and we didn't care. I've turned to that film many times. That's a Darkest Hour film for me. That's like Return of the King, Ride of the Rohirrim type thing. Like but when times are dark and when things are hard, like what do you turn to? And that film is very personal for me.
Well, obviously sorry for the loss you experienced at that time, but I would assume, I could be speculating here, but would this be the kind of the genesis of the idea for you to combine film with healing?
Yeah, I used that film to help people through grief in therapy and in courses that I taught. And when I had the idea to do the YouTube channel and I called my buddy up, I knew sooner or later we were going to get to it. The thing is, like, our demographic is 60% female, 40% male. And so anytime we do Terminator, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Die Hard, the episodes do fine, but first couple of years of building a YouTube channel, you're focused really intensely on growth, and you figure out, okay, what are the episodes that are performing well? What are the things that your fan base wants to see? And so we've done a lot of those episodes, and we've occasionally said, here's something I want to do. Probably won't perform super well. We're going to do it anyways, right?
That's what I do on my channel. It doesn't do very well, but I do it anyway. That's been my business model. I should look at yours. Keep going. I'm listening.
Well, so we did like Die Hard and The Matrix and Terminator 2 and Mad Max Fury Road, a bunch of other stuff. But, a lot of times we focus on romances or animated films or things like that our fan base really enjoys. But we've had some success with Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and Star Wars and Marvel and things like that. But and so we're finally at a place where I said to Alan, my co-host, I said, we're doing well enough now that we need to do Rocky.
Yes.
I have no idea whether the episode will perform. My hope is that a different.
Gotta do it.
But it doesn't matter. We're doing Rocky, and we've already we have a Patreon where we release the episodes, director's cuts versions early.
Sure.
And so that dropped today. The actual episode drops tomorrow, Tuesday.
Any feedback
the 28th.
on the Patreon regarding it? Any feedback?
Oh yeah, lots of women who said I never gave Rocky the time of day.
God, I thought it was just a
like
violent fight movie or what.
And they watched our episode, and we keep getting comment after comment of I'm going to watch the Rocky movies now.
Nice. Awesome.
Because our episode is Rocky and healthy masculinity, right?
Oh,
the idea of
that's the theme of this one. Okay.
Yeah, so masculinity being that strong, protective, aggressive, providing energy, right? And how do you balance that with so that you're not a total jerk?
That's great. I think you need to have.
Because masculinity.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Because masculinity is a wonderful thing, but what do you have when it's just the strength and the determination, and you just have the aggressiveness and the competitiveness? You've got Clubber Lang.
Or
right?
Like Adrian said in part 5, you gave him everything, but you can't give him your heart.
Yeah. Right? And so I look at Rocky the same way I look at like Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. We talked about how that is a man who can decapitate an orc
right.
and then also write a poem.
Yep.
And so we look at
women get weak in the knees for that kind of man. I know it. I heard it. My co-host Katie on the Rocky podcast. That's why she loves Sly and the Rocky character so much. As a female, she finds him handsome, strong, but also because he's an animal lover, he's tender and great to his wife. All those are endearing things for, of course, a female base for sure.
And has no. I mean, I know some people poke fun at Rocky and Apollo frolicking in the ocean, but like,
oh man,
Rocky,
beautiful romance, bromance.
But Rocky's not afraid to be affectionate with men,
of course.
And he doesn't need to say anything stupid like no homo or anything like that. He's just like, hey, I love you.
Yeah.
Like you're a Creed, and I love you, kid.
Yeah. He said that at the funeral. He goes, I love you, Apollo. Did he say I love you, Apollo at the funeral? I swear.
In the director's cut version, he does.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
that's right.
He says, I really love you, man. Like
that's right. And then he also told Mickey that he loves him. So, and Mickey told him. Here's that old crusty Mickey saying, I love you, kid. I love you. So
Yeah. And I've had some people who've chimed in, and they're saying that Rocky is the greatest chick flick that ever got Trojan horse that ever got Trojan horsed in as a guy's movie. It's just a.
Okay. I hate romantic movies, says the Rocky fan. Yeah, I know it's a great love story. It's the greatest love story of all time in my books. Yeah.
No true Rocky fan. That's my point. And that's why if all you like is Rocky 4. Sure. You can still be an a-hole, especially if you've only seen the original cut, because the romance isn't really there. No, it's an oiled up slugfest, right? But if you actually enjoy the Rocky series, it is a beautiful love story.
Really, ultimately, from Rocky 1 to the last film, Rocky Balboa, and even in the Creed films, this is investigated. But the idea, it's actually the story of Rocky and Adrian. And
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Rocky Balboa is so interesting because she's not in the film, but the entire film is a love letter to her.
That's right. She is the film. She's the reason why Rocky is the way he is. Now, before we close, I do have a kind of a big question for you, and I can't say too much because I don't want to. But this is the question I have for you. Creed 3 is coming out. Okay, and within the Rocky fan, now I know you're a big Rocky fan, but I run a Rocky podcast. It's kind of my world, and so within my world, within the fandom of Rocky, I kind of get a lot of, just like if you're a Star Wars fan, you get, let's say, people hating Last Jedi, or you get that kind of dialogue. So within the fan, I basically track the comments of fandom, right, good and bad within the Rocky franchise. And Creed 3, of course, as you know, it does not have Stallone in it. I think he might be executive producer by name only on the film, but he has no involvement whatsoever on the film. He didn't do anything to the film. I think. It's not really a spoiler, my understanding. I think the word Rocky is said once in the whole film. I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to see it. Now, here's what I want you, for those who actually got this far in the show because of me, but I'm getting to the Creed 3 talk. There's a lot of toxicity within the fandom where the fans are being divided about if you see Creed 3, you are somehow betraying Sly. And the Rocky, I know, you should laugh. Okay, so, but this is a real discussion.
See what I want, damn it.
Okay, so there are gatekeepers within the fandom who truly kind of celebrity worship Sly to the degree that because of his non-involvement in his back, I don't know if you know about behind the scenes drama between him and the Winklers.
Yeah, no, I know all about it.
Sure. Okay. So again, look, like I've said, I love Sly. I love the Rocky films. I'm a fan of his films. But Sly doesn't care about me. You know, he doesn't care about Ryan. And, you know, like he doesn't, does he worry about my personal life? Is he worried about the things I go through at work? At the end of the day, him being an actor is just his job. Guess what, folks? It's just a job. And he got paid a lot of money for a job. I also have just a job that I don't get paid a lot of money. And he doesn't give a flying F about my job. But there's a lot of fans who get really invested in his drama that he's dealing with on his own through his whatever, and they have actually said that if you see this film, you are betraying Sly. And so I was actually accused by a fellow person who's big in the fandom, won't say their name. They said that I wasn't a Rocky fan because I want to see Creed 3, and that even though I dedicated a whole podcast to it for years, and that I'm betraying Sly and that I'm disgusting. Okay, so my question to you is, what would be your professional advice to the fandom that are toxic? And now this would be for any fandom, because you see Star Wars. So what do you say to people? What is a healthy approach to disagreement within a fandom? There you go. So that's the overall. What would you say is your medical professional advice for those people?
Okay. Really fast. You can't betray someone you don't have a personal relationship with. That's the definition of betrayal.
Oh wow! If you don't have great. I love that. Can you say that again, please?
You can't betray someone you don't have a personal relationship with. That's not a betrayal.
So I don't have, for example, I don't have a personal relationship with Sly.
Yeah, well, and even if you did, like, you can go see a movie. Listen. Okay. My co-host Alan and I are both big Star Wars fans.
Okay.
And this is, so I'm going to talk about gatekeeping writ large for a second, and then we'll go into Rocky. We're both big Star Wars fans. He is extremely critical of the prequels, of the sequels, of a lot of different things of Star Wars.
Sure.
And I, on the flip side, am very forgiving and lenient. We actually agree, for the most part, on what the weaknesses or the flaws in Star Wars is, but he gets upset about it, and I am, like I said, I'm forgiving and I let it go. But it's for the exact same reason, which is we both love Star Wars.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Right? I'm forgiving of it because I love Star Wars. I just love to hang out in that universe. I just love to be there. In my mind, Star Wars is like pizza. Like it's very hard to have actually bad pizza. You can have mediocre pizza, but it's still pizza.
Frozen
and you
pizza,
can have amazing pizza.
Frozen pizza, $5 frozen pizza. It's frozen pizza. It might not be the deluxe you get at a nice restaurant, but it's pizza. Yeah, I got you.
For sure, right? Whereas he's like, I know how great it can be, so I demand excellence from Star Wars, right?
So and I think they're both valid. Should be good because pizza can be good, and we've had good.
Right.
So why are we doing every pizza the big way? Yeah, okay.
I think pop culture and media, it's important to love things, to connect with things, to be inspired by things. But the fact is, like, nobody has to like all the same stuff. Like, even when we roasted Twilight, we took pains on our show. We took pains to show respect to the Twihards.
Sure.
And our thing
not
was
to insult the fans, not to insult them as people or their fandom.
I specifically said, look, I'm talking about Twilight as a relationship expert. These relationships are toxic.
Right.
If you enjoy Twilight as a guilty pleasure, enjoy it. Right. Lap it up. I'm not going to judge you for that because I like Fast and the Furious, and this is going to piss some people off, but that's equally stupid.
How dare you? It's about family. You're a family therapist. Come on. Fast and the Furious is about family. It's all about family.
No. Listen, Fast and the Furious is far more entertaining.
Yeah, of course.
And far more awesome. But if we're talking about just like storytelling stupidity, like they're equally stupid universes, right?
I totally agree. Well said. I totally agree. I know what you mean.
But I love Fast and the Furious. Like, people gotta love what they love. And the whole thing about gatekeeping, like, it becomes a personal attack. This is just about life in general now. If I have a position, my identity becomes wrapped up in that position, and I feel like I've arrived at that through logic, and I have an emotional attachment to it. And if someone else has arrived at a different position, I can see that as a threat. It's a threat because does that mean I'm wrong? Does that mean I'm stupid? Does that mean that my position is invalid? No, I can't be wrong. I'm right. They are wrong. They're the enemy. They're stupid. They're blah. And why we do this with pop culture is beyond me. You know, like when people hated on Last Jedi and started sending death threats to.
It's my favorite one, by the way. I love it. Absolutely love it.
I
don't know why, but I love it.
Oh no, we can have that conversation. I think it's a different time. But people hate it on Last Jedi. And they start sending Rian Johnson death threats.
Yeah, it's insane.
Death threats that he ruined Luke Skywalker, and people are sending death threats to Zack Snyder that he ruined Superman. And I'm sitting here going, if you're going to threaten to kill somebody over a fictional character, it's you who don't understand Superman. It's you who don't understand Luke Skywalker. These characters that you revere are supposed to inspire goodness, and you're going into toxicity. So I look at Rocky, right, and I look at a character who saves it for the ring, but even in the ring, look at him with Mason Dixon. You one crazy old man. You'll get there.
Yeah,
he doesn't hate the guy.
No, it's a great comeback. Yeah, you'll get there. If you're lucky, you'll get there. That's what he could have said too. If you're lucky, you'll get to my age. That's the whole point of existing.
Well, it's a comeback, but it's not a mean comeback.
No.
Like there's
a great response.
Like there's affection.
I better.
Yeah, like at the end, he says, "You're a great champion. You got heart." Like he says that to Mason. Like Rocky is someone who shows respect. Yeah. Even in like the Rocky IV director's cut, like he pounds the rock with Drago at the end. There's all sorts of stuff, and so I look at Rocky. And I think Rocky is a character that's meant to inspire goodness and kindness.
Yeah, so it's my pledge or plea to the Rocky fandom. I know in our Facebook group I made it clear that you can have disagreeing opinions about the film. Absolutely, Creed 3 in particular is what I'm getting at. And we've had it, and I've said as long as you disagree about the film and your feelings on the film and don't attack people's opinion, like the person giving the opinion, like you're stupid for saying X, Y, Z. No. You could say your piece, why you did or didn't like. So absolutely freedom of discussion as long as you're never attacking the individual. So once we I actually got attacked by an individual. It's like that kind of stings. That sucks. I don't think that's the Rocky spirit to attack the individual. No. You can say, hey, I don't agree with you. I think it's going to be garbage, or I don't agree with you. I think it's going to be great. Great. You can disagree without being hurtful is my plea.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and here's what I'll say about Creed 3 and the whole Erwin Winkler and Stallone thing. Stallone was a nobody who wrote an amazing screenplay, and by nobody I mean in the eyes of Hollywood or the world. Obviously, everybody's a somebody, but like he's a nobody. He needs somebody to produce the film. Erwin Winkler gambles on him because he wanted to get a real a Hollywood A-lister. He wanted Burt Reynolds or somebody to play it, right? And Stallone says, no, it has to be me. So Erwin Winkler secures the rights, is my understanding, and he's held on to them ever since.
It's like the scene of speaking of Last Crusade where the guy says he chose poorly. I hate to say it, Slide chose poorly in that moment. He was a.
But here's the thing.
Well, no, I don't mean foresight is such. Like in that moment, he did the best he could in the information that he had. And
I don't know if he chose poorly because the fact is maybe Rocky doesn't get made unless he plays the way the game is played.
It's not successful. It's a bomb. It destroys his career. It was a gamble. Right. Yeah.
Now you can say, and there's an argument to be made that if we're not looking at it like business, we're looking at it like goodwill between people who've scratched each other's backs.
Sure.
That on a human level, does Erwin Winkler owe Stallone? Absolutely.
Of course.
On a not legal, not business, just like on a human level, Erwin Winkler.
He's being kind of stinky about this. Absolutely.
And company, like who even knows who Erwin Winkler is if not for Rocky? Nobody.
Of course.
Maybe in the 70s.
He built that production company. Let's be honest.
And so Erwin Winkler, in terms of integrity and like human decency, should he renegotiate with Stallone? Yeah, he absolutely should. Okay, but the other side of this is it's Hollywood, and it's business.
It's money. It's always about money.
And Erwin Winkler owns the rights.
Yeah.
And it's really sad that Stallone really can't do anything about it.
It sucks.
But what I will say about Creed 3 is. I cannot believe how many people who say they love Rocky are not having this conversation. Stallone said goodbye.
He did.
There's a YouTube video floating around.
Your turn, kid, right?
He says it's your turn.
Yeah.
And he reconciles with his son, and he's with his grandson, and Rocky has a peaceful, happy ending.
I thought it was
after the loss of Adrian. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But not only that, there's the YouTube. You can find it on YouTube, or you can Google Men's Health. Stallone says goodbye to Rocky Creed 2, and there's a whole article, and you can see the video where they're filming in the desert, the training montage, and Stallone says, this is probably my last time for Rocky, and I want to thank Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan, all these other people, for giving him extended life and the things that we could do together and passing this on to the next generation. And he lit Stallone. I hate to say this because I love Stallone.
Yeah, I got you.
But he straight up said, I'm done, and now he's being butthurt about it, and he's throwing shade at Creed 3. And I think that's, and I personally think he's. I don't think he's out of line because of the whole Irwin Winkler thing. I mean, I think I read he said I love Michael B. Jordan. If he wants me in Creed 4 and Irwin Winkler's not involved, I'm there.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely.
So it's not a Michael B.
Here's
thing.
the thing.
Yeah, it's just the
No.
Winkler situation. Yeah.
But even if none of this drama were going on, I watched Creed 2, and at the end of that, I'm like, okay, so Creed 3, Rocky's not going to be in it.
Yeah, that's
like that is how
that's
that
kind
is
of a natural progression.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, and he's not Mickey. He didn't have to die for it to happen. He got to go off and have a happy ending. And so,
agreed.
As far as Creed 3, I'm super excited because they did the work to make me care about Adonis, to make me care about Bianca. You know, I care about these characters. I'm excited to see what happens.
As long as she doesn't sing in the third one, that's all I ask. Come on. No more singing. No more singing, please.
That's a youth. That's a you thing. I'm not gonna say enough of that.
I am. I was here right now. I don't want her singing. Like, bring in Frank Stone. That's. Come on, bring in Frank for singing.
So look, they want to name drop Rocky, and have his poster in the gym where Adonis is training, and then otherwise just it's 8 years later. He's got Tony's son has been training him. You know, all these different things, and it's. I think I personally have no problem with that. I will have a problem if, like they mention offhand, that Rocky died, which I don't think they're stupid enough to do.
I haven't seen the film. I haven't watched the trailer yet. I've avoided all spoilers. I haven't watched the trailer.
It looks good. I mean, if they do something,
looks good, and I've heard the reviews are good. I just want to go in blind. I'm going in very blind. Is what I'm saying.
Look, this is what people are saying about Rian Johnson and Star Wars, which I'm like you. I like Last Jedi, but a lot of people who didn't said actually Rian Johnson's a great fit for Star Wars if he's working with original characters. They think he shouldn't have touched Luke. He shouldn't have touched Leia. Like he shouldn't.
He's a great storyteller. But maybe give him.
He's a great storyteller. Yeah, don't mess with these classic characters. Go in and do your own thing, and you can go in any direction. And so I look at Creed 3, and I'm like, this is what everyone thinks Rian Johnson should be doing in Star Wars. Like, do whatever the hell you want with Adonis and Bianca. Tell a darker story.
No lore legacy that we're wrecking. It's just Adonis Creed.
Yeah. Tell a darker story that Sly's not a fan of, because it's not a darker story involving Rocky.
That's right. His character's
I'm
untouched,
reading review.
Right.
His character, as long as his character's untouched. And so that's my 2 cents on it.
No, I totally agree. It's very sound, and it's a good plug for the way you handle issues in your practice. I thought it was very well said. Yeah, it's very reasonable. Yeah, perfectly said, actually. I've never thought of it that way, that if Rocky, it's almost better that Rocky's not in it. Maybe it's better that the character's not touched, because if it's complete garbage or whatever it is, or if Adonis does something crazy, like, I don't know, throws Bianca off a building, whatever, whatever happens, yeah, you're right, the Rocky legacy had it send off, and the Rocky character is living in peace with his family in Vancouver or whatever like that. So, well said.
Which I know you're happy about, because you're a Canadian. You want to see.
It's like, I love it. Rocky just lives a few meters away from me. That's great.
He's out training in the snow still. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I know, we got snow again today. Jonathan, this has been, I've already taken an hour of your time. This has been an absolute joy and pleasure to speak to you. Your obviously your YouTube channel is doing very well, so I appreciate you taking the chance on me, a little ham and egger, coming on the show and cracking wise about the Rocky character, about what you do, and your YouTube channel. Again, plug it again if you'd like. I'm going to tag it. Look, no one's jumping to your like you're not going to get a big spike. I hate to tell you, you might lose some listeners if you come on my show. I don't know, but you do a great job, and of course your show will be plugged. But again, it's cinema therapy. You guys are doing really well. I love what you do, and I'm looking forward to, obviously, to the Rocky episode. So I'll be watching that tomorrow. And my goal will be get this interview out about the same time you release the show, so then people will just see this interview on my channel, and they'll go jump over on your channel, watch the Rocky discussion, which I have a feeling it will do very well. I don't think you have to worry about that. I don't think you have to worry about it doing poorly. Rocky's a well-loved character, and you guys do a great, very good job on your channel.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.